As you know, on Sunday night or Monday morning of every week, we post a new expository semiotics explaining why we would choose which lectionary readings. But in these readings, our dream is, and our desire is, to help you read the signs and fondle the details and spot the seminal metaphors, the condensed signs and the stories that are key for preaching to a digital culture. So strap on your seatbelt and join us as we prospect our passages for today. Grace to you and peace, sisters and brothers, from the one who is, the one who was, and the one who is to come. Happy Trinity Sunday. This is the first Sunday after Pentecost and Preach the Story vlog number 63. Each one of our lectionary passages this week is a deep well that we could spend the whole time drawing from each one. Let me just do a kind of a hop, skip, and jump over each one that I'm not using, but I'm going to give you a little ideas of how you might do it. Isaiah 6, 1-8, the house filled with smoke, and I said, woe is me, for I'm a man of unclean lips. And then a live coal was taken from the altar. And then there is this incredible saying, who shall I send? Who will go for us? And I said, in Hebrew here, Hineni, here I am, send me. This is one of the greatest moments of everyone's life, is to be called out, summoned by the great I am. And in the presence of that light, the great I am, to say, here I am. A little I am to the great I am, saying, send me. Psalm 29, this litany of the voice of the Lord, the voice of the Lord, the voice of the Lord, the voice of the Lord. You could create a whole litany right around the voice of the Lord as a kind of a drum roll. Then Romans 8, 12-17, all who are led by the Spirit are the children of God. And what does it mean to be led by the Spirit? But I specifically want us to look at John 3, 1-17, probably one of the most familiar passages of Scripture, but one of the ones that is least really drawn from the deep well, because we think we know it, so therefore we don't really plumb it and draw from it. But this is the story of Nick by night, Nicodemus, who comes to Jesus and is having a little problem with, he's so left brain, he has a little problem with this metaphor that you got to be born again, and Jesus stays with him and is patient with him, admits that Jesus is a rabbi sent from God, which is huge. It's a huge admission for Nicodemus, who's part of the Sanhedrin, to admit this. But then Jesus says something about the Spirit. And we read this and we think we know what it means. The wind blows where it, King James, I love it, listeth. Okay. The wind blows where it wills. And you can't tell from whence it comes or where it goes. So is everyone who's born of the Spirit. Now, when we read that, we think, well, it's talking about the wind and the Spirit. But wait a minute. No, so is everyone who is born of the Spirit. It's not about the wind. It's about everyone who is born of the Spirit. And everyone who is born of the Spirit, you can't tell from whence they're coming and where. In other words, like the wind, they're unpredictable. Unpredictable. Are you unpredictable? Is your church unpredictable? So here we have, maybe we haven't really read this properly because we're afraid to read it properly. Here we have a calling out to a life in the Spirit, which is calling us to an unpredictable life and an unpredictable church. It's an incredible moment here. The earth and the eternal enters the earthly. And in Jesus, you are carrying inside of you, as he comes to share his resurrection life in and through you, You're carrying inside of you a finite creature, the infinite. I mean, it just blows your mind when you think about this. But this point about the unpredictability of those who are born of the Spirit, like the wind, you can't tell what they're going to do next, from whence they come or where they go. We are a predictable people. We have predictable churches. We have predictable everything. How do you know you're living in the stream of the Spirit? How do you know you're baptized by water and the Spirit? Are you predictable? That's not a good sign. See, living in the stream of the Spirit means that there's this unpredictability to it, to that kind of life. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, well, what? Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is no straight lines. Did you hear this? Look out in nature. Where are the straight lines? See, a straight line is predictable. You know right where it's going, you go straight. Where are the straight lines in nature? Look at a river. It ambles and rambles and meanders its way, sometimes even reversing directions. That's called an oxbow. It sometimes moves forward by going backwards. No landscape designer puts in a straight walkway that's any good. No, you want a walkway that kind of takes you on a little journey that's curvaceous. Engineers might put in a straight line, hence cement street sidewalks. But the shortest distance between 2 points may be a straight line, but it's also the ugliest and most boring line. And the home stretch is not straight home. It's a journey. If you look at how nature forms anything, show me any evidence out there that God thinks straight. Show me anywhere in nature. Well, there's one example, exception. It's the exception that proves the rule. The only evidence that God thinks straight, you ready, is in the cross. But even the cross has another straight line that crosses out the other straight line. So we have a paradox. Luther liked to say, Martin Luther, the great father of the Reformation, liked to say that God writes straight with crooked lines. But wait a minute, Luther, what life story is straight? Do you know any life story that just goes straight without curves and crooks, and that without backups and bends and detours and swerves and curves and curls? No, every life story. That's how you know you're living in the stream of the Spirit. You say, wait a minute, sweet. But, there is this proverb. It's both in Proverbs and Isaiah. Trust in the Lord, and he will make your crooked path straight. That's Proverbs 3, 5-6, or Isaiah 45, 2-3. I will go before you and make the crooked places straight. I will break in pieces the gates of brass and cut in sunder the bars of iron. And I will give you the treasures of darkness, the hidden riches of secret places. I love that. But wait a minute. When you look at that, what it means that God makes the crooked way straight, it means that God clears a path for us. God goes before us and opens up possibilities for us, breaks down barriers for us, frees us from our fears and our bad habits. That's what it means. It doesn't mean you're going to go in a straight line. So where the Spirit of the Lord is, there are curves. There's nonlinear. But where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is also, you ready? Humor. Jesus had an incredible laugh life that we have yet to even begin to understand. And partly because Hebrew humor, Jesus' humor, was not like Johnny Carson or Chris Rock humor. The very things today that cause people to groan, like puns and clever turns of phrases and sarcasms, that was the essence of humor in Jesus' day. So he founds the church on a pond, Petros on this Petra. His critique of the scribes and Pharisees was less through lecturing and hectoring than through sarcasm and wit. Here's Matthew 20. You blind guides, you strain out a gnat but swallow a camel. Now, when they had heard that, that was a punchline. We're missing today because we don't know that in Jesus' native tongue, Aramaic, galma is the word for gnat and gamla is the word for camel. So he's punning with words here and being sarcastic. And, pointing to a speck of sawdust in another's eye when you have a whole log in your own. That would have engulfed everybody. They would have just burst out in this huge guffaw. And then there is this, we've totally missed this incredible moment where Nathanael asks, can anything good come out of Nazareth? So we all, it doesn't mean so much the place, but it means the people. Can anything good come out of this armpit of a place and people? But we forget what Jesus' next words were. Okay, and Jesus, the very next thing he says is, he has an immediate riposte. Behold, an Israelite indeed, in whom is no guile. In other words, listeners back then would have realized that the father, the one who named Israel, his first name was Jacob, which means a deceiver, a master of guile. And so here Jesus is riposting, it's kind of parrying Nathanael's pun and slam on Nazareth with a compliment. Here's because he's telling the truth that, yeah, can anything good come out of it? Jesus is laughing at it. There's humor here. And he is announcing to Nathanael that he can trust him. Yep, I can trust you because you tell the truth. There's no guile in you. And behold, an Israelite indeed, in whom is no guile. And he welcomes Nathanael into his inner circle with humor and with sarcasm. The more we lose ourselves in Christ, the more we find joy, laughter, lightness of spirit, a holy hilarity. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is, and this is where I really want to hit on the unpredictability. And how unpredictable the greatest story never told, because we don't tell it as a story, from Genesis to the maps, how unpredictable this story is. And let me give you one example. Book of Ruth, an amazing story. Ruth, a Moabite, a pagan, an Arab, today from a place we would call Jordan, is widowed, and she and her mother-in-law strike up a friendship, Naomi. And they both head to start over and go to Bethlehem. And in Bethlehem, Ruth kind of falls in love, and that's a whole other story, with an older, wealthy farmer named Boaz. And Ruth and Boaz have a child. His name is Obed. Obed has a son named Jesse. And Jesse has a son named David, son of Jesse. And Jesus is, you get this? David as an Arab great-grandma. And Jesus is in the lineage of David. So we have these fights going on right now between the Arabs and the Jews. But they were both in Jesus. Jesus is a mixed breed. Jesus has both Jew. And this is so unbelievable because Jewishness is matrilinear, which means it passes through the mother. And that's broken with Ruth. So in Jesus' own life story, we got this unpredictable presence of Arabs in Jesus' own blood. And how unpredictable is that? Jesus was Arabic too. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is going where you do not wish to go. How do you know you're living in the stream of the Spirit? Can you tell me in the past 6 months where you have gone in a direction you did not wish to go? Now, it's kind of easy for all of us right now because of COVID. We're all going in some directions we don't wish to go. But this ought to be, in some ways, the norm, not the exception. Pentecost does not guarantee you a penthouse. Pentecost does guarantee you a lighthouse to guide you to your safe house, a wheelhouse from which to design your greenhouse, and a mudhouse residency that will never be far from those who are hurting and living in the madhouses, the outhouses, or the glass houses of our day. That's going where you do not wish to go. One of my favorite stories, and I'm a big donkey guy, as some of you know, with St. Is, and we're working on the second volume of that trilogy right now. But one of my favorite stories is the story of Samuel and Saul. And you remember how Saul attempted to escape the summoning of the Spirit. And where, do you remember where he hid? The backstory is, you remember, Saul's father said, our donkeys have run away. Saul, you take a servant and you go see if you can find them. So Saul goes on this journey to find the missing donkeys. And they travel all over, far and wide, and the donkeys are nowhere to be found. And finally, Saul starts to worry. He says, my father is going to be more worried about me now than the missing donkeys, so I better bring this to a close. And so the servant says, well, I hear that there's this prophet. They called them seers back then. And I've got some shekels that we can use, because Saul says, I don't have any money. And the servant says, well, I got some. And so let's go see if we can convince this guy named Samuel to give us some help. And maybe he knows can give us some help where these missing donkeys are. And so as Saul comes into the village where Samuel was, and he sees Samuel, God had told him the day before that the person you meet who will be from the tribe of Benjamin, which is the least of the tribes, and who will stand out from the crowd will be the king. People want a king, so let's give him a king. And so as Saul is walking into town, Samuel immediately accosts him. And to make a long story short, anoints him king, but then wants to present him to all of the rest of Israel. So he calls for a meeting of all the 12 tribes and the representatives. Meanwhile, Saul goes home because he's worried about what his father is worried about, which is, where is my son? And he goes home and he doesn't even tell his father that he's been made king. He doesn't want this. There's no way he wants this. And so they all gather together to have the presentation of the new king. So Samuel gets up there and announces, I've anointed, this is the new king. And where's Saul? Nobody can find Saul. You know where Saul's hiding? With the donkeys. He hides himself behind the baggage on the donkey's backs, hoping that nobody will find. This is the new king of Israel. God will take you in directions you do when God summons you in the stream of the Spirit and to live a life of the Spirit. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is the liberty of the wild. Nature needs wild places. You can never get rid of the wild, or you lose creation itself. A life of following Jesus will conserve the wilds of every person's spirit. We're talking about wild imagination, wild dreams, wild hopes, wild expectations. When's the last time you went wilding? When's the last time you really entertained some wild hopes and dreams? Every child needs their wilds to be protected, their free spirit to be cherished. And the wilding needs gentling, not breaking. You don't break a horse's spirit, you gentle it. And too many Christians have had their spirits broken because we haven't respected the wild that is in them, where the Spirit of the Lord is. The modern day equivalent of the 19th century camp meeting, and some of you are familiar with these camp meetings, Cane Ridge, they were actually before Cane Ridge, but estimates vary between 10 and 25,000 gathered in Kentucky. Now, can you imagine 10 days, 25,000 before plumbing, sewage, anything else? They gathered for like a 10-day big party. And that's when kind of the Christians went wilding. And it was all about, you had 3 services a day, but sometimes services went on and just kept going, and big, huge tents. And it was just a big time of partying and playing and celebrating. The modern day equivalent of the camp meeting is Burning Man. Now, Burning Man is held every year in the Black Rock Desert north of Reno, Nevada. And about the same number gather. Last 2 years have been canceled. They just announced it would be canceled for 2021, so there's going to be a big burn in 2022. And it is a time where people gather and celebrate life. The person who founded Burning Man, his name was Larry Harvey. In 2004, he wrote 10 principles by which Burning Man would be governed, and by which their time together would be kind of circumscribed. And this is the ethos that he wanted Burning Man to give. You know, sometimes the world steals our best lines because we don't know we have them. Sometimes God's more active in the world than in the church. And some of the things that go on at Burning Man, you know, you don't want any part of, but what Burning Man is addressing is the need for people. And Christians gave up the camp meeting because we were afraid of it. We didn't know what to do with it. It kind of got a little wild and unpredictable. And but here are the 10 protocols for Burning Man, and I'm going to start it where the Spirit of the Lord is, and I'm going to give you the 10 protocols from Larry Harvey. He calls them the 10 principles that govern Burning Man. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is, number 1, radical inclusion. Radical inclusion. Anyone can be a part of Burning Man, and they welcome the stranger. Burning Man is ostensibly and avowedly a place where no stranger ever should feel strange or estranged. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is, you ready? Number 2, gifting. Burning Man is devoted to acts of gift giving. It's all about giving. They don't have any currency. They have no purchasing. It's all about gifting. And it doesn't have to be of equal value. The more generous you are in gifting, the better. Number 3, where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is, the third protocol, decommodification. In other words, you are not treating one another as objects, but as subjects. And you will never commodify or monetize anything. The substitution of consumption for participatory experience is forbidden at Burning Man. Number 4, protocol number 4, where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is, and they call it radical self-reliance, but it really means there is a radical be yourself. Be who God made you to be. Bring out those inner resources and that inner spirit that is uniquely yours. Number 5, where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is, how the church needs this. Protocol number 5, radical self-expression. Now, self-expression has to be done in the context of community, and they make that clear in this protocol. But self-expression is not just to express yourself. It's a gift that builds up the body. It builds up, they call it, the burn. It leads to self-discovery and discovery of others. Number 6. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is communal effort. It's all about creativity, community, cooperation, and collaboration. And they build these kind of social capital and social networks. Number 7, where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is, they call it civic responsibility. We would call it today more social justice. But there is a call to be faithful to and give an account for those that are least and the last. Number 8, I love this one. Where the Spirit of the Lord, there is a leaving no trace. In other words, when you leave, the environment is left not as you found it, but better than you found it. There's a MOP, they call it, M-O-O-P, matter out of place. That's the burner name for litter, and there is no litter after a burn. You leave the place better than you found it. Number 9, where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is participation. Everybody is called to get involved. Where the Spirit of the Lord is, number 10, there is immediacy. We call it today spontaneity. There is surprise, and that surprise begets wonder. Grandpa Henderson lay dying. His wife and children and grandchildren gathered around his bed to comfort him. "I know I'm dying," he said. No, Grandpa, you're not dying. It's not so. Grandpa said, "You think I'm a dummy? I am dying." But the doctors say, his wife started, "I am dying. And the doctor's only trying to make you feel better, but they don't fool me. So let's get down to the important matters right now before it's too late. I've taken good care of all of you in my will," said Grandpa Henderson. "All I ask is that I not be cremated. I just want a regular burial with my flesh and blood." The oldest son spoke up. "Papa," he said, "but your father's buried in Tampa, Florida. Your mother's buried in St. Louis, Missouri. And your brother's buried in Seattle, Washington. You can't be laid to rest in all of them. You got to tell us where you'd like to be buried." And Grandpa Henderson raised up a little bit and he said, "Surprise me. Surprise me." Every day where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is surprise me. Surprise me, Spirit of God. Fall afresh on me and surprise me. I wrote a prayer. I'm going to close with this. It's a prayer that I wrote a few years ago, and it tries to encapsulate a lot of the sentiments that are in this vlog. And so here it is. There is one biblical reference directly, Proverbs 31:25, if anybody wants it. And I will put this prayer in the vlog where it says "show more," and so that you will have it. Here we go. Let's end in prayer this morning. Fill my life with laughter, Lord, with things to smile about, with the ability to see the funny side of things, with the grace to take a joke and laugh at myself. Thank you for the greatest joke ever, the joke you played on Easter morning. Spare me from a finicky faith. When I look foolish, release in me good humor instead of a bad temper. May I share the good news with laughter on my lips. When life bares its teeth, fill me with the levity of mercy. Or when people curl their lips, or when facing an onslaught of unfairness, fill me with laughter. For laughter suffereth long and is kind. May my community of faith be a community of laughter that fears not the future, but laughs at the time to come. May every wind turn to a gale of laughter which can carry me to a different place, where the spirit of joy prevails in my heart, where a cry for the hapless, the hopeless, and the humorless become tears of resurrection triumph and tears of Pentecostal joy. surprise me. Semiotics is the art of angling, of turning things askew, upside down, inside out, cattywampus, sunny side up, over easy, scrambled, hard-boiled. We hope you enjoyed today's journey, but always remember, it's more important you prepare the preacher than you prepare the sermon.